Hi everyone, it's Jerry. This is Game 3 from the 2014 World Chess Championship match between Magnus Carlsen and Vishy Anand. Going into this round, Carlsen has 1.5 points and Anand has half a point. In this game, Anand has the white pieces. He opened with d4. Carlsen replying knight f6, c4, e6, welcoming the Nimzo Indian defense should knight c3 be played. But instead it was knight f3 and now d5. Queen's Gambit declined, following up knight c3, bishop e7, and bishop to f4, the classical variation. Black castles. White with this move, by the way, has their bishop ideally placed outside of their pawn chain. As a follow-up, knight on b to d7, and c5. With this move, white grabs some queenside space, and this pawn can be reinforced if challenged, and we will see it challenged soon enough. One other detail is that this bishop here, keep in mind, is the bad bishop on the black side. These next handful of moves will not only look to try and break down this structure, but permit black to exchange their light square bishop for white's good bishop. But first, we have c6, bishop d3, b6, white's there to reinforce the c5 pawn. Black looks to break down this structure further and renews this possibility, well, not renews the possibility, makes way for bishop a6 right now. a3 is there to defend b4, which means c5 will live and white will maintain this queenside space advantage. This particular game right here reminded me of one that I covered recently between Liren Ding and Levon Aronian. In that game, we had the bishop still inside of the pawn chain, but still there were these similar ideas, one that will show up in the game, at least regarding pawn breaks. As the follow-up, it was bishop to a6, the light square bishops are off, and now this sharp reply b5. It's a very theoretical line here. Rook is hit, c6 is hit, very limited replies, c takes b is forced, and now c6, this pawn is now a runner, passed pawn, and comes with tempo against the knight. But black keeps a cool head, queen c8 is there, preparing to meet pawn takes knight with queen takes knight. Instead it's c7. This pawn will live, watched over very nicely with the bishop on f4. And as a follow-up, we have b4. The knight is now hit, a lot of tension here, another fork in the position, knight b5. It's important not to take here, as otherwise you're inviting a piece into your territory, and the knight is now pinned. This is not a good idea for white. Instead, what's best is to plant the knight right into b5. So this is yet another defender of the invaluable passed c-pawn that is just a moment away from promoting. Next we have a4. Initially I was thinking this was played in order to allow rook to a5, and while that's true, what's maybe most important is to make sure white is not allowed to play a4. Just making a passing move, just to note this a4 advance, now this knight is not going anywhere, and he's ideally placed to watch over c7. This is just too good, too great of a coordination on the white side here to allow white to plant their pawn on the a4 to secure this knight, which is in the black position. So this is maybe an additional reason, in other words, behind a4, not only to play rook a5, but to also stop white from playing a5 themselves. So after a4, it was rook c1. One thing white would like to do here is throw a minor piece into this square. Knight d6, however, played at this moment would allow this pawn to simply be captured. Bishop here, bishop takes, knight takes, he's yet again captured. So the c-pawn, in other words, needs some more support before a minor piece is of any threat to get to that d6 post. So that's what prompts the next move, rook c1. Now this is back on, and this is where the main attention will be focused for these next few moves. Black needs to do something about one of these white minor pieces getting into d6, and he does just that with knight e4 2 pieces there to defend. White cannot jump in there just yet, but white is persistent with knight g5, trying to lure the piece away from d6. In the game, we saw knight d to f6. Keep in mind, if bishop takes knight, there can follow bishop takes bishop. And if this knight is grabbing here, well, this is going to be game over. Knight d6 is absolutely deadly. Queen is hit, and if she moves, white pushes through. This is game over for black. In other words, you wouldn't be able to capture twice on this g5 square. What is tried is knight d to f6, reinforcing the knight. If he's captured, black has the option of recapturing with the knight, and that's what we see in the game. Knight takes knight, and the knight is the one who now recaptures. And this is where there is maybe a slip in this game. You'll notice the clock situation, by the way, at this moment here is level. However, on this move 17, we did have to wait some time before Carlsen made his play, before he made his 17th move. 1:08 remaining. After this next move, how much time was spent? A good 35, let's call it a good 30 minutes on that move right there, knight d to f6. As the follow-up, knight takes knight, and black was very quick to recapture with the knight, apparently trusting his calculations, what he had worked out at this moment right here when he played knight d to f6. This next move did come very quick. After knight takes knight, he did recapture with the knight on e4, and I believe that this was a mistake or an inaccuracy that leads to white gaining a little bit more of an advantage down the line. What was maybe better at this point is to capture with the pawn, and what this is allowing for is the knight to make use of the d6 square. May seem a bit scary, of course, to now allow one of these minor pieces to get into d6, but with this knight being able to play to d5, this does seem to be still a relatively equal position. Let's have a look at one of the lines. Let's jump right in there with one of the most direct moves. After this what-if scenario, d takes e4, what if now knight d6? How to cope with that? Well, there can follow bishop takes knight. Bishop has to recapture, and now not moving the rook. Moving the rook would allow bishop takes pawn, and white is the one who stands very well here. However, a better play is to give up the rook and play this move b3. And on bishop takes rook, king takes, as otherwise he pushes through. And now this knight, since we had d takes e, this knight will be very nicely anchored on that d5 post where he exerts pressure on c7. He watches over the b4 square, which is certainly important as this allows for potential b4 pawn break, and before you know it, there can be now 2 connected pass pawns close to striking, close to promoting. So this did not happen, but was maybe a better continuation here to not take with the knight, but rather take with the pawn, which would free up, which would vacate that d5 square, a nice post for a black knight. Okay, in the game it was knight takes knight. Black is there directly to watch over d6, and white is there twice, so can't go there just yet. White still tries to do something about that d6 square by giving the knight a kick. e4 is not a stable square, and black is now very limited, does not have very many choices. The knight is hit. If he goes here, he's going to be taken out, and white stands better in this position. And the other choice, well, that was the move played in the game. Rook a5. White grabs the knight. Black gets the knight right back. Queen takes a4. Grabs a pawn and hits the rook. Rook a5, not very many choices. Queen c6, sinking deeper into the white position. This pawn is passed, and with b takes a, black also has a passed pawn. And you'll notice the bishops, how they are similar. Both are watching over a passed pawn, but whose passed pawn is more significant? This guy is just one step away. During the live stream, I was pointing out that this is a very inconvenienced queen. If there's one piece you do not want to have as a blockader for a passed pawn, it's a queen. She likely will want to be doing more useful things than stopping a pawn from advancing, but this is the situation Black finds themselves in right now. The queen can't move. The pawn is very well supported. This one also is supported, but again, the black queen is tied down. The white queen is not tied down. As a follow-up, e takes d, rook takes d, queen takes b6, queen d7. Black looks to have a little role reversal here. The rook wants to be the one who blockades on c8 so that the queen is a little bit more freed up. White finally castles on this move 25, very late stage in the game to be castling, but there were other more pressing issues up until that point. Only again at move 25 did we have castles. Another idea was to play queen a6. I really liked this move during the live stream. I was pointing this out. This idea to try and push through immediately with c8. After a move like rook c8, there can follow rook b1. Looking at these ideas, rook to b8. Black at this point would have to give up the exchange. Grabbing on c7. This would be too much if this was allowed. The rook to b8. There's not a good way to defend the c8 square for a second time. Black would have to take on c7. There can follow rook b8, bishop to d8, and bishop takes on c7. White would be up the exchange in this position. Rook c8 as a follow-up. White is the better side. White is the winning side. We didn't have that. Castles is what was on. Rook c8. Rook c6. This is interfering with any coordination the queen and rook may have on the b5 square. There's no way to, let's say, give the queen a kick now. Rook c6 interferes with that idea. And keep in mind, there's also maybe an idea of at some point playing the rook to b6 and b8. Or even with this last move, now we have ideas of the rook coming into b1 and then getting into that b8 square. This is a very nice, useful move, rook to c6. And now this next one, move 26, not a move you really want to make, but is because it's very weakening these four squares, very lashing out type of move, very committal move. It is there, however, to create a flight square in such an open position like this. You really want to try and get the move back if possible and do so with tempo. G5 has this flight square in mind and it throws a punch at the bishop. Anand was thinking on Carlsen's time, most likely here. This G5 move took about 10 minutes, and Anand's reply came right back in less than a minute. Bishop G3. I was thinking bishop E5, but you're maybe in a position as white allowing black to take this bishop and take on C7 if you don't have enough coverage for it. So while this may seem more aggressive to meet this G5 move with moving forward and still taking away that flight square, again, you run into maybe these types of sacrifices at some point. Instead, it was the much more calm and fine move, good move, bishop G3. This bishop will maintain his control over the C7 pawn. Black will not find it as easy to remove defenders of this guy on C7, which remains Black's number one responsibility. You have to stop this pawn from moving and try and track him down, but it's very difficult to see how Black will manage that. As a follow-up, it was bishop to b4, and then rook to a1. Notice you cannot take here. The queen does have the responsibility of watching over the rook on c6. So queen takes bishop, we would have queen takes rook. In the game it was rook to a1. One of the ideas behind this bishop b4 move is to play into d2, where it puts pressure on an unprotected pawn, and if he falls, well, he could potentially fall with check, and if he's gone, there goes d4 soon thereafter. So Black After black's bishop to b4 move, white replies with rook a1. Convenient way to deal with bishop d2. If bishop d2 is played now, rook a3 wins black's only asset, their passed a pawn, and conveniently defends the pawn on e3. So this rook a1 move stops bishop d2, and as a follow-up we have bishop to a5. What's maybe better here on the black side is to unfortunately sit and wait, not commit this bishop in either direction, to not move the bishop, in other words, to just keep him on b4, but they're kind of nothing moves. The computer suggestion for the black side is unfortunately moves like king g7, h6, excuse me, h6, h5 type of moves. If we have a look at this h5 advance, there can follow h3. h5, by the way, would be aimed at trying to kick this bishop off of this diagonal, but he's not going anywhere. After a move like h5, there can be h3, and on h4, just drop the bishop back. And where do you make further progress? I mean, if you make it just a kind of a passing move, king h7, or maybe playing rook here, white is the one who will be able to make progress. In fact, one thing white can be doing here, the only thing that was keeping white from playing rook to c1 earlier, I should have mentioned that, at this point right here, instead of rook to a1, white would really like to play the move rook c1 to double rooks, bring the queen over to a6, the rook over to b6, and then get this rook into b8, but playing the rook to c1 right here is running into this fork. However, with rook a1 in, and these few moves inserted on the king side, and this semi-passing move king a7, again king h7, there really wouldn't be much that black can do here. Rook a2 is strong. This is now getting ready to play rook c2. There would be no bishop to d2, and white is ready to transfer his attention to putting pressure on the c8 square with moves like queen a6, rook b6, and then rook to b8. This is a very strong post for a major piece, connected very well with the bishop here on this diagonal here, indirectly watching over the b8 square. Okay, well, in the game, we did not have these types of moves, h6, h5, king g7. They're kind of nothing moves, computer suggestions, but they're not really helping the black side at all. What is tried is bishop a5 in the game, and what follows is queen a6, applying pressure to the rook. Bishop takes c7, and after queen c4, how to cope with this pin? Black has worked themselves into a self-pin, and there's not a successful way to untangle. What is tried is e5, bishop takes e5, rook takes, black gives the exchange, trying to grab some activity, trying to maybe get into this e5 square for something along this diagonal, but the move e6, this pin, again, remains. e6 is in, there is no queen e5. King f8 is tried. Rook c1, piling up on this pinned piece, and that's it. There's nothing to do. Carlsen resigns at this point, and he was way down on time as well, having to invest a ton of time early on with that knight d to f6 move. Again, that follow-up move when there was the capture on e4, d takes e4 would have been a better try, I believe. But in this one, we have now a level match, and a big, big deal this game is, without question, to level the match at this point. Again, after rook a c1, Carlsen resigned. This pushes it to even score, 1.5 points to 1.5 points. And this is Anand's first victory over Carlsen in a long while. Certainly in World Chess Championship play, it was Carlsen winning 3 games and the rest draws in the 2013 matchup, but I guess we can say with this one, the Tiger strikes back and things are level. Things are without question heating up. I was very excited covering this live. I will again continue to do the live streams and the videos as well, and I hope you follow along. This is very exciting stuff. Feel free to share what your comments, thoughts are on this, and I'll catch you in the next video. And as always, I hope you got something out of it. Take care.